Sarah, and this is our Artist of the Month virtual story time. Our artist for the month of March is a woman named Helen Frankenthaler, who was an abstract expressionist painter. That's a long name to describe a certain kind of painting, so let's break it down. Abstract means that the things that you are painting don't reflect real life. So if you are looking at an abstract painting, you're not going to see realistic looking people or animals or places, but you are going to see a lot of colors and shapes and patterns. Expressionist or expressionism means that you're creating art based on your feelings. So Helen Frankenthaler was an abstract expressionist, meaning she used a lot of color in different patterns to represent her feelings. So we will learn more about her in our story in just a minute. And next week on Ms. Erin's virtual how-to, you can learn how to make your own colorful abstract expressionist paintings with a type of painting called puddle painting. We'll also have some kits available at the library next week while supplies last. The book we'll be reading about Helen Frankenthaler is called Dancing Through Fields of Color, the story of Helen Frankenthaler. It is words by Elizabeth Brown and pictures by Amy Sakuro. It's read with permission of Abrams Books. At a time when girls were taught to sit still, learn their manners, and color inside the lines, Helen Frankenthaler colored her reds, blues, and yellows any which way she chose. Helen never wanted to follow the rules. If you look at the picture of all the girls painting, which girl do you think was young Helen? What do you think, looking at their paintings? Yeah, that girl's not painting flowers that look like flowers, just lots of color. And she has paint on her hands. Maybe that's Helen. Let's keep reading. When her mother called her to the dinner table, Helen continued painting watercolors of the sunset shining through the apartment window. Instead of going to bed, Helen filled the sink with water. She dribbled in drops of ruby red nail polish and watched the color flow. When she let the water out, she loved to watch the color swirl into shapes. During summer vacation, Helen let the waves whoosh and whirl around her, sailing her body through the tides. When her father called her ashore, she wanted to keep circling, twisting, floating, forever wrapped in the blue-green colors of the sea. While her older sisters were in school, Helen spent her days with her mother, who nurtured her dreams. Helen read and wrote stories, made collages, and created designs of glass beads, circles, hearts, and stars in brilliant colors. She painted pictures and cards for birthdays and anniversaries, filled with all the colors of happiness, purple, yellow, and pink. Helen's father worked long days as a judge. She couldn't wait for him to come home each day. He took her wherever she wanted to go. Where does Helen go with her father? Yeah, maybe an amusement park. There they are on the carousel. Where else do they go? Maybe the zoo with all the animals? Most of all, Helen loved taking walks with her family in Central Park. She ran under the welcoming sky, twirling, waltzing, leaping across the lush green fields, and played hide and seek among the flowering trees. When it was time to go, Helen took the colored chalk she had stuffed in her coat pockets and drew a line from the front of the Metropolitan Museum of Art through the park, across the street, through the crowds, around the corner, all the way home. The colorful line connected the two things she loved most. Helen's parents always encouraged her to blossom, express herself, paint free. In an art class at school, Helen wanted to do things her way, but she had to follow the rules in order to pass. Don't sketch that way. Draw like this. Paint what you see. Helen pleased her teachers when she sketched figures, drew chairs, and painted flowers and pears like all the other students. But she wished for something different. What do you notice about the paintings of the pears? Yeah, they all look the same. How boring. I bet everyone sees a pear a little differently, right? Let's see what else Helen does. Helen found comfort in painting seascapes. The blues and greens reminded her of summer days with her family at the beach. She made pictures of her trips to the country with bursts of orange gold paint that warmed her face like the sun. Soon, Helen's happiness disappeared entirely. When she was 11, her father died. Helen missed him so much her sadness caused pounding headaches. She struggled in school. Helen tried painting, but nothing came out. Her canvases remained blank, her world of colors and light dark. But colors lived in her mind, floating and shifting like the shapes she made in childhood. Staring at every color in her paint box, memories came back to her. Periwinkle, the feathery whisper of her father's encouragement. Ochre, the warmth of her father's hand as they strolled in the country. Cobalt and crystal, the summer's splashing in the ocean waves. Helen began to paint again, and eventually, art healed her. Helen followed the rules well enough to succeed in school and go to college to study painting. Her professor wanted colors separated with thick black lines, her brush marks and planes arranged across her canvas to create depth and space. Helen loved college, but longed to paint what she felt inside. Painting feelings couldn't be contained in black lines or organized into clear shapes or objects. Helen dreamed of setting her color free, like she was as a child, running without boundaries. She searched for more. After college, Helen moved back to New York, where many artists were exploring forms, lines, and shapes differently. They overlapped bands of color, thought more about geometry or shapes, and painted larger and larger pictures. Helen met an artist named Jackson Pollock, whose paintings hung in museums and galleries. The art world called him the greatest living painter in the United States. Reviewers celebrated him. Fans loved him. When Helen saw his work, she marveled at how he splattered and dripped his paint on canvas tacked to the studio floor. If he broke the rules, well, why couldn't she? What do you think? Will Helen be able to create her own style of painting now that she's seen this? Maybe, I sure hope so. Let's read and see. Helen exhibited her art. She showed her art in small shows, while male painters were given larger exhibits. Critics called Helen's work too sweet in color, too lyrical, and too ladylike. She worked longer and harder at her paintings, drawing strength from her memories of the country and the sea. She wanted to leap into her colors, feel the colors, be the colors. Art never let her down. Helen traveled to Nova Scotia in Canada to get away. As she walked through the fields, colors swirled around her. Cerulean blue and coral cascaded down a mountain of saffron and gold. Rose, pink, and lavender rippled across the sky. Spring green and vermilion gushed through the sea waves. Helen felt the countryside move within her body. She saw the mountains with her arms. She heard the sea in her wrists. Could she paint the beauty she saw all around her? Could color be the painting? Helen grew brave. Back home in New York, Helen laid a huge canvas on the floor. She put down her brush. Helen blended red and yellow to make orange. Blues and yellows became green. She mixed and mixed and mixed the rainbow. Helen swirled charcoal lines across her canvas to guide her, like the chalk lines she drew as a girl in the city. With a fistful of pink, Helen turned her wrist outward and spread the paint, streams of color racing and spiraling, the paint soaking into the canvas, like rain seeping into soil. Helen grabbed a bucket of crimson and poured, setting her colors free. They ran and rushed. The colors turned into memories. Helen imagined the mountain peaks of Nova Scotia with her arms. She remembered the sea's waves with her wrists. With a sweep of her arms, she splashed green like sea foam. Colors jetted across the painting, merged and connected like rivers into oceans, colors into feelings. Wherever the paint landed was the perfect place to be. What's she remembering in this painting? What do you notice? Oh, yeah, maybe that little girl was her. And who could that be? Maybe her parents when they used to go on vacation? How beautiful. Grabbing a nearby mop as her partner, Helen promenaded through puddles and pools of paint, pushing and pulling her colors together. Oranges and reds tangoed, corals pirouetted, pinks plied, yellows and blues sashayed, winding, turning, spinning. When she was done, Helen danced in that field, free among all the shimmering colors of her life, extending, reaching beyond the painting into forever. The end. There's some more information at the back about her life. These two photographs are of Helen at her studio in 1964. This is a photo of one of her paintings. Let's read the biographical information. As a child, Helen Frankenthaler lived in New York City with her parents and two sisters. Frankenthaler's father, a judge on the New York State Supreme Court, and her mother realized early on that Frankenthaler was special and fostered their daughter's artistic talents. During summer vacations, Frankenthaler spent time in the countryside with her family, where she fell in love with nature, the mountains, sky, and sea. She cherished these memories throughout her life, and they're often reflected in her work. When Frankenthaler's father died when she was 11, she fell into despair and suffered with migraines. She struggled in her studies at two private schools, the Horace Mann School and the Brearley School, until she attended the Dalton School for 1 year and graduated early at age 16. At the Dalton School, Frankenthaler studied art with Rufino Tamayo, who was an important teacher for her, introducing her to modernism. He was sympathetic and supportive, encouraging her in ways that other teachers hadn't before. Tamayo helped Frankenthaler find her way, setting her on the path toward the artist that she would become. She went on to earn a bachelor's from Bennington College, studying under Paul Feely. After college, Helen Frankenthaler met Jackson Pollock. It was then she began experimenting with technique. She developed the soak stain method, where she thinned her oil paints and poured them onto an unprimed canvas, allowing them to soak through the canvas. Frankenthaler followed her inspiration and used this technique with her game-changing painting Mountains and Sea, which she painted all in one day's work after a vacation in Nova Scotia. She dated the painting October 26, 1952. Although it is unknown if she had a plan for Mountains and Sea, her swirling charcoal line suggests she did plan some of it beforehand. Frankenthaler poured her oil paints thinned with turpentine onto a very large, unprimed canvas, allowing them to run free and soak into the fibers, creating luminous, radiant fields of color. The paints became the canvas, and the canvas became the painting.
Often in her work over the decades, Helen Frankenthaler controlled the flow of paint with a variety of tools like sponges, sponge mops on long handles, large brushes, and squeegees. Helen Frankenthaler was a supreme colorist. Because of her technique and the huge size of her paintings, Frankenthaler moved around the canvas as she worked, reaching in with her wrists and arms like a dancer performing on stage. Her soak-stain paintings changed the course of abstract art, ushering in an entirely new movement, color field painting. Frankenthaler's work can be seen in almost every major museum of modern art in the United States and elsewhere in the world. Beside her soak-stain technique, Helen Frankenthaler worked in prints, especially in woodcuts, sculpture, and ceramics. Her work remained tied to nature and human emotion. She became one of the major abstract expressionists of the 20th century, according to leading art historians. And she proves that no matter what people say, you can always try your own way of doing things, and you might be very successful. Remember to tune in next week so you can learn how to do your own puddle paintings to make your own abstract expressionist paintings very colorful, just in time for spring. Until then, keep dreaming and stay safe and healthy, friends.